Greetings everyone, welcome to video number 21 in the project management series presented by Process Geekoid. Today's agenda will be going over reviewing the PMBOK process table as well as the 18th process, which is the develop schedule process. This process occurs at the intersection of the time, knowledge area, and the planning process group. As always, please subscribe, like, and comment. So let's move forward. Similar to other steps in planning, after sequencing activities and estimating activity resources and estimating activity duration, the last step in schedule planning is develop schedule. Out of this process, the schedule baseline is the major output. Develop schedule is the process of analyzing activity sequences, durations, resource requirements, and schedule constraints to create the project schedule model. The key benefit of this process is that by entering schedule activities, durations, resources, resource availabilities, and logical relationships into the scheduling tool, such as MS Project or Artemis Track View or Jira, will generate a schedule model with planned dates for completing project activities. Next, we will go over the develop schedule ITTOS. So inputs, tools, techniques, and outputs for develop schedule are as follows. For inputs, we have schedule management plan, which identifies the level of accuracy and units of measure for resource to be estimated. Also, we have the activity list, which is an output of defined activities, which identifies the activities that need resources. Activity attributes is an output of defined activities as well, which provides primary data for use in estimating resources for each activity in the activity list. Activity resource requirements is an output of estimate activity resources and identifies the types and quantities of resources required for each activity in a work package, along with aggregated data on estimated resources for each work package and work period. Next, we have project schedule network diagram, which is the major output of sequence activities. Resource calendars is where we have a calendar that identifies working days and hours that each specific resource is available to work during project execution. Project scope statement is coming from defined scope, which makes sense because it gives a general idea of how long the project will be, along with any risks, assumptions, and constraints that need to be taken into consideration for developing this schedule and associated baseline coming out of it. Risk register is also an output of identify risk, which is an input to this process. This is an input here because we need to account for the risk of resources being out sick or on unexpected leave or any other risks related to software and hardware outages, and need to shuffle our resources to meet the demands of the project timeline in case there are any actively accepted risks. Project staff assignments comes from acquire project team process as part of human resource planning. Details on how to onboard people and how to remove them from the team is included in this. Resource breakdown structure is an output from estimate activity resource process, is a categorical breakdown of all resource types and used for tracking earned value management, and the breakdown of resources needed on a job. 4 types of resources are human capital, physical capital such as equipment and material, and cost, the budget. EEFs, enterprise and environmental factors, factors that are not in the control of the project team that influence, constrain, or direct the project. Examples include resource location, availability, and skills. OPAs, organizational process assets, are formal, informal, internal policies and procedures specific to scheduling, and also historical information on schedule baseline for comparison. For tools, we have schedule network analysis, a technique that generates project schedule model. Critical path method, which we talked about in the sequence activities process, is the longest path in a schedule network diagram, and calculate the critical path by calculating how long it's going to be, the longest duration path. So basically counting all the activity durations in the schedule network diagram. Whichever one is the longest duration is the critical path. And then we have slack, which we talked about in the previous video for sequence activities, and also how to create the schedule network diagram. Please refer to those for more details. Sequence of activities is the longest path of duration throughout the project with shortest possible duration. Method used to estimate minimum project duration and determine amount of scheduling flexibility on the logical network path in schedule model. So this critical path method is really important and is the most frequently tested concept in the exam. So the simplest way to calculate the critical path is to add up all the durations in the schedule network diagram based on all paths. Another alternative tool that we can have is critical chain method. And this is used when there are limited resources and project uncertainties. And it is basically where we are placing buffers on any project schedule path for limited resources and project uncertainty. So the critical chain is basically a resource-constrained critical path. Typically, this is a wrong answer choice on the PMP exam. But just keep in mind, at any time you hear the word buffers on a schedule path to account for limited resources and project uncertainties, this is basically taking the critical path method and adding those buffers. That's what critical chain method is. Resource optimization method is used to adjust start and finish dates of activities that adjust planned resource use to be equal or less than resource availability. It optimizes schedule based on resources and need to have right amount of resources on any given day. Two types of resource optimization techniques are resource leveling, which is basically going to be level off the peaks in the resource histogram and also part of the staffing management plan and HR management plan. The resource histogram indicates the number of hours each resource is working per week, per day, and any peaks in the schedule are chopped off and allocated for any other day. So you can see here, that's what we're trying to do, make sure that we have 40 hours a week. Anything that's excess is going to be postponed to another time frame, a different period. But keep in mind by doing so, that by allocating the extra time for a different day, does not meet the schedule baseline target date of completion, which will run into the risk of lengthening the schedule and will require a change request from control schedule process, giving a longer schedule, prolonging the project, and might also eat into the budget. So it is mindful to be very careful when to do this. Resource smoothing, on the other hand, is making use of slack in the schedule and assign a slack resource or individual to smooth out the overloaded individual, and by doing so still meets the schedule baseline target of completion. It is basically a modified version of resource leveling, except the key difference is that you will still meet the schedule baseline date and nothing is delayed, and the completion dates of activities are not delayed. So it takes care of slack, and the activity is shifted to the extra slack duration resource to smooth the resource assignments. That is the key difference between resource smoothing and resource leveling. Next, we have modeling techniques. What-if analysis. Schedule must be dynamically linked from start to finish. So we can have a stair-step waterfall connected from start to finish. Monte Carlo simulation, which is a computerized simulation. It is if-then scenario calculation where the software or computer simulation takes the PERT formula, P plus 4M, so P is for pessimistic, plus 4 into M, most likely estimate, plus O, optimistic, all divided by 6, and calculates it multiple times over, providing a probability of completing the project in a certain time frame. Leads and lags. Leads are hurry time and lags are wait time. Next, we have schedule compression techniques. And the two major types of schedule compression techniques are shown here. And fast tracking is done after analyzing a schedule management plan and you're performing two tasks in parallel, initially meant to be sequential but in parallel, to finish the project sooner. Keep in mind that this is going to overlap tasks and leads to errors and increase in the risk of rework, which would not be ideal. Crashing, on the other hand, is process of adding resources to one's project so as to be able to finish it faster. It involves a financial cost in most cases because you're basically adding resources to finish it and you run the risk of burning up the budget and the baseline might need to be revised by raising a change request, which is not advisable since the sponsor would not be happy with that. We need to be sure that we can compress the schedule without jeopardizing the quality of our product, service, or result. And resource optimization we also talked about. Next, we have scheduling tools. Scheduling tools are basically things such as PlanView, Jira. Jira is used in an agile environment, and Microsoft Project, which helps you create the schedule network diagram and overall schedule interfaced with Excel. And that concludes the tools and techniques. Next, we have the outputs for developed schedule, and the key output of this process is schedule baseline, which consists of all the estimates and approved version of those estimates, along with the schedule network diagram tied into it. That gives us a clear picture of what our milestones are and what the overall schedule duration is and what needs to be done when. Next, we have project schedule, schedule data, project calendar, project management plan updates. Since the baseline is part of the plan, we have to update it. Project document updates. So those are all the outputs. Again, the key benefit of this process is that it helps enter the schedule activities, durations, resources, resource availabilities, and logical relationships into the scheduling tool. It generates a schedule model with planned dates for completing the project activities. Thank you for watching this video. Please subscribe, like, and comment.